welcome to another Atlas Forge educational webinar. This is Andy Morbitzer, CEO, Atlas Forge. So today, welcome to the call. We're talking the first month, or the first of the three-part series was about emerging markets, and then the second part, to get you up to speed, was everything electronic. We really focused on electronic vehicles and 5G and all that exciting stuff, why this is a absolutely perfect real property asset that I think everybody should take an interest in. So today we're going to bring to you emerging markets, the products, if you will. So robotics efficiency, massive increase, entrepreneurial mentality bursting. What I mean by that is before a lot of people are displaced at their 9-to-5 jobs, it would be prudent to start a business, have a additional source of income, because robotics will replace a lot of blue collar jobs. Even though they use a lot of strategic metals, the other side of that, the robotics that are more efficient and so forth, there's a downside. Of course, the 9-to-5 blue collar, maybe a lot of those jobs will be made up in some of the support that and maintenance that these type robotics have. Some of the people will be able to adopt the skill set and be able to move towards that goal. However, some people won't. So we always believe in multiple income streams if possible. So be an entrepreneur, learn how to find a business, find something you're passionate about, because the robotics industry is expected to be a $20 billion industry here in the next year or two. It will be prevalent in everything. I mean, you can see it now with the beta testing with all kinds of manufacturing, logistics. I even see some that are robots making pizzas. And then the robots put it in a package, and a drone takes it to the end user. I've seen now where they're converting cars, and I think it was Toyota, that now has an oven in the back of the car where the actual pizza driver. All this technology is changing just about every aspect of our life. So emerging markets and emerging population are huge. Robotics, both the hardware and the software variety, excel at administrative tasks. So anything, combined a robot and quantum mechanics with really blockchain, which is the accounting ledger. Robots are thinkers, and they're capable of working around the clock. They reduce costs to these massive companies that can utilize robotics. I mean, it's a huge industry, and I believe the next decade or two, it'll actually explode. And all of these things use all types of things, from microchips on down the line. Everything strategic metals is a huge robotics emerging market. And then we get into the ability of robotics, really the accuracy. And robotics right now make microchips, because these are very, very small, and the applications for microchips and the use of microchips. And why do I bring up microchips? Because microchips will run on 5G supported by blockchain, and it's a futuristic thing, but everything will be interconnected, from smart cities to smart products to smartphones to robotics. So overall, they're really impervious to human error. They are very accurate. They need some maintenance and upkeep and cost and so forth, but it'll change the accuracy and the attention to detail that sometimes, being built by hand, we don't have. So it's huge in cost savings. The trade wars that you're seeing, and you get into taxes and so forth, this enables each individual country to really it evens the playing field worldwide, where typically a Western company would export or import jobs and be able to really produce widget A for a fraction of the cost that they could here in North America, for example. So now what robotics does, the robotic proficiency, its ability to, its productivity is now equal, whether that robot's in Japan, Europe, Africa, South America. So labor, as I look at it, labor kind of is now on a more even playing field. So I think there'll be some interesting opportunities that will come forth from this. Also, everything that I've read and everything that I've seen, and any kind of performer that's been done with robotics, there's been a 70% reduction in cost. And when you look at a P&L, a profit and loss of any type of business, we used to do them, angel investing, and I've looked at a lot of business plans from whether I'm going to invest in that or so forth, but cash flow and all these things. But when you can reduce a hard cost by 70%, that changes everything. That should change the cost of goods and services around the world. It should reduce them. So it could be a great thing. It frees up human workers to focus on more creative, strategic, and customer-facing roles, meaning we can do what we're intended to do: innovate, create. So I see a great potential for robotics in the future. And then, of course, because I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and so is Nicole, we love the ability to, that frees up our times for really mundane tasks that, if it can be handled, like accounting, which we both hate, that would be great. So SpaceX, sci-fi, and aerospace. And it couldn't be more prevalent and obvious in the world that the war or the battle going on for the stratosphere, or if you want to call it outer space, the area in which the airspace is, let's say, 1 mile above the stratosphere, where all the satellites continue to rotate in orbit. These are the rights, similar to like buildings or airway or view rights on a beach. A building can only be so high because it blocks the view of another. Well, that same type of concept's going on in space right now, and it's all about satellites and communication and data, and the ability to move data around the world seamlessly. And SpaceX and satellites, not only for weaponry for militaries around the world or for space exploration, but also for universal coverage of communication and barter and all those great things that we enjoy, those conveniences we enjoy all around the world. Because there'll come a point in time very shortly, in the next decade, where there won't be a place in the world that you won't be able to get access to data or have a Wi-Fi connection for your smartphone, your computer, your man-made drone, whatever it might be. You're about to see a significant improvement in communications around the world, and it's all going to be fueled by, well, the biggest communication revolution the world's ever seen, and that's going to be called 5G. 5G is quantums on steroids. It's fast, it's efficient, it moves more data, 1,000 times faster than 4G. So if you think your speeds are nice now, this is what if you will, the fabric of the future looks like. It'll all be built on 5G, it'll all interconnect. So we have a huge possible opportunity here to get involved, because look at what's happened in the past, guys. There was the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, you had the tech revolution, all these different revolutions were really driven by innovation. And we have that in smartphones, technology, 5G. And if you could see the future like I see it, it's very easy to say this is going to be a great place to not only hedge, insure what you own, but also have a very viable real property asset that's in very high demand. This is what's going to dominate the next 40 years. And these things are happening all around the world, and in some of the most populous places in the world. Like we talked about last week, population explosion. When you bring another 3 billion people into capitalism, plus you bring on another 3 billion that are going to be added to the world's population, you got another 6 billion people that are going to enjoy smartphones and drones and computers and solar energy and green energy. It's just beginning. You haven't even begun to 2020 to 2030, you'll see more innovation in gadgets and techs. And honestly, this is my favorite presentation of all the strategic metals. I love all these little gadgets. Not that I understand how to use them, because I'm awful, ask anybody, but when I see the potential, because I see everybody else addicted to them, and that's what I see. I don't have to be addicted to them. I try my best not to be. But hey, when you can see what the future and what habits are, remember, one of the very first rules of investing in anything is find products that people are addicted to, that are habitual. And it's been that way. I mean, look at the improvement. all the billionaires that were made in the communication and telephone industry, all the people that were billionaires in the steel industry, all the billionaires that were made in the agricultural, the Apples, the Samsungs, the technological revolution. Same thing happens here. Guys, quit trying to beat the market and be the market. And Strategic Metals allows you to do that. You are the general store, because all these companies, all this technology are based on very few, very, very rare strategic metals. So it's something to consider. I'm highly excited about it. I love it. Last week we got into some of the electric vehicles. Here's some more slides, some more stats. Really, this all began with electronic vehicles, and the most populous country in the world, China, approximately 1.4 billion people. They converted 70,000 taxis into electronic vehicles. So it's happening all around the world. But what you have to understand, not only is it technology, it's also population, because technology is happening in the most well-reserved areas of the world, meaning the countries that have the highest GDPs, whether it be China, the United States, Europe, Japan. So it's all about technology. Okay, we're getting into passenger drones. They actually have one now by Porsche that is actually really cool. It looks cool. It's a self-manned drone. And some of these that I see now have ranges of 500 miles. Some of them are solar, some of them are, have the propulsion system that you see there in the picture. And then the drone on the bottom right-hand corner, Domino's and Pizza Hut have already invested billions of dollars into the research of these drones and delivery systems. Here's something I don't tell many people, but when I look at the future and I look at automated vehicles and I look at drones, I was an air traffic controller back in, in the 1980s. And then Reagan fired us in 1985. But understand, when you look at drones and you look at airspace and you look at rights of ways and highways, airspace is very similar to just like you'd see a city grid. It's got stop signs, it's got red lights, it's got yields. And it's just, they're called different things, but it's the same structure. It still has laws. For example, maybe at an even altitude, let's say 10,000 feet, everything flies west. And on odd altitudes, at 9,000 feet, for example, everything flies east. So you have separation, but I can see a future where the rooftops of downtown buildings for transportation, for delivery of services, any kind of documents, any kind of logistics, delivery systems, DHL, UPS, I can see it secure, Loomis, all the big vaulting companies. And I think it'll all run on blockchain with the verifiable third-party confirmation. And it's an emerging market that the kids these days will enjoy a life of convenience that we're not used to. They'll be able to, fly across the lake if they want to. Where it's really where George Jetson meets the Terminator. I mean, it really is. When you might laugh at it, but when you look at the future, even though it was done in a cartoon on a TV series, and it has a little spaceship that buzzes from place to place, that's where we're heading. And then mix in the Terminator, you have machines or robotics that acquire awareness. And so at some point, that'll mesh somewhere in between. So it'll be exciting, it'll be fun. I've loved gadgets for years, and now I'm fully invested in them because they're an asset that in my mind can grow very nicely in value without having a stock market crash or a meltdown, for example, like gold or silver might have. So when we look at all this, what's it all going to run on? Of course, I've talked about 5G. Now, how do you account for all this? How do you confirm all of this? Well, of course, unless you've been living in a cave the last 5 years, a technology that's disruptive, that's changed the world and will continue to do so, is blockchain, cryptocurrency, software, accounting. Everything must be tracked. And, some people use blockchain for currency. You've seen all the alternative coins, and I'm sure you've all heard of Bitcoin. But the underlying technology is much, much, much more vast and expansive than just the currency. The blockchain is the awareness, if you will. It gives us privacy. And I won't get into cryptocurrency, but it's an accounting ledger, if you will, verifiable, self-regulating, autonomous, and all done through mathematics. It's not subjective in nature. So I love it. It's the future. It's happening. It's being adopted by every major company in the world right now. If you don't have a little bit of your money that's really into cryptocurrency as a real property, then maybe we should have a talk one day, because it's very exciting, it's very interesting, and it's definitely the future. So really, blockchain, the technology, it's the accounting vehicle of the future, and that's what's being utilized. It's like we're building out the infrastructure for the next 50 years, whether it be communication, 5G, drones, delivery system, communication system, satellites, energy. It's all coming together. Now, getting electric vehicles. So now we look at the past and we say, okay, where have we seen this before? Where have we seen an increase in population? Because as I'm an entrepreneur and a capital investor, I look at GDPs, I look at growth, I look at population, and I look at my demographic of who's going to be the people that are habitual to said product. Well, when we look at this and we look at the future, understand that to position yourself and have the ability to see the future and to be part of it is unbelievable. Between artificial intelligence and everybody, it was the computer was on Jeopardy about 2 years ago. That computer called Watson. That was really the first look, or the masses look at AI and becoming aware. It thought, and it was impressive. So when you add all these technologies together with an emerging market, that's exactly what my life has been the last 50 years. I was a baby boomer. I was one of the people that, because of population growth, we drove every market, the financial market, macroeconomically, the housing industry, the appliance industry, because as this population came to the old saying, 2.5 kids and a white picket fence and a dog, that's exactly the life that I've had over the last 50 years. That same thing is now playing out in the Pacific Rim and these emerging markets, in the Sudan, in the Philippines, Malaysia, Myanmar, China, India. Guys, you're going to see the biggest explosion. Instead of it being 10,000 people a day that are born, now we're seeing 100,000 people a day. And you've got the existing population that's now coming into capitalism. The strain on natural resources, strategic metals, precious metals will be fully depleted in the next decade because of our need for conveniences and high tech and all the niceties of the world. That's what's going to drive this market. Not tens of millions of people, but hundreds of millions of people that are coming into the world of capitalism. And that's what's going to drive these products. And these underlying products are all supported by, you guessed it, strategic metals. Now I look at this as a long-term proposition, where right now, and I'll leave with this, I guess, the last thought, but I'd like to look at this as long-term. I like it because it does so many things. It eliminates a whole bunch of risk, a whole bunch of problems in the fiat world. So we absolutely love strategic metals. And here's another depiction of virtual intelligence, what's happening, how it's all used by data, all the different virtual worlds. You'll see those for training, role playing, social interactions. It'll all, maybe it'll be a cruise that you go on. You'll be able to put on a pair of glasses and act and feel and look like you're actually on a cruise. If you want to go to the moon, you'll be able to go to the moon. If you want to sit at the table of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, you could actually insert yourself into that recreation, that virtual reality. And all of this takes data. All this needs a 5G network. All this needs microchips and strategic metals. So hopefully this gives you a better understanding of why we love strategic metals. I didn't even really get into solar technologies, but when you really look at solar and wind, you look at turbines that produce wind. Wind is free, the sun is free. Solar panels and wind turbines is the future. simply because they're green, they're in ample, unlimited supply, and have no negative effect on our ecosystem or our planet. So you're starting to see things all around the world, like California now. If you build a new house, it's going to come with rooftop solar panels. So you're starting to see power now being green. You're starting to see some wonderful opportunities with green technology and cryptocurrency. You look at solar mandates that go into effect 2020 with home builders around the world. Now, and even in some cities, you actually get a tax incentive, meaning they give you money, pay you to reduce your utility bill. And then some are co-ops where you have, if you have excess power, why, of course, you can sell that back to your local distributor or what have you, or pay your bill with it. So some exciting stuff going on with solar technology. This one's about California, but I'm starting to see these all over the place. These mandates, similar to electric vehicles. I think in the future you'll also see solar panels adapted to just about every flat surface on the planet. Anything that has the ability to reflect light on any type of surface at some point, because technology, they have the ability now to really make solar panel flexible, and that changes everything. So now not only do you need maybe I don't know what direction it would be, a southwest facing solar panel, now you can encapsulate it, change the configuration of it, and move it in such a way that you're optimizing the sun and the power, no matter what angle, what time, day or night, winter, summer solstice, it doesn't matter. It will have the ability to collect as much power as possible. And think about what power is in these emerging countries. It's going to allow them to have access to all these things much quicker, because it took us industrial revolution, 40 years to build the infrastructure where we live. And this is an ongoing thing in areas where, like I said, we're not talking about millions of people, we're talking about billions of people. So we just lived the greatest time during the baby boom and the population explosion after World War II. Same things happening around the world as people come into the 21st century and technology. It's a great thing, absolutely great thing. So with that said, I will leave you with one last thought. The only thing that we didn't cover, and I wanted to cover here on the last series of this three-part series, that there is a disruptor in strategic metals that I haven't talked about, and it's trade wars that are going on around the world right now. Strategic metals are, in essence, dominated by the Chinese, even though other countries have the ability to extract these said metals, because remember, they're byproducts of coal mining. So the United States does it, but understand it takes a good decade to get a mine like that, the processes, the purities, and all those types of things, the manufacturing, to bring a product like this to market. So right now, 85% of strategic metals are really controlled by China. And they've already came out and said that they're going to reduce, if you were on last week's call, they're going to reduce the amount of production. So what that means is it really limits the outstanding supply. It's constant now. They're not adding to it. China's going to use or produce enough to support their own country. So I can see in the future, as the production wanes, the amount of strategic metals that's in the open free market right now will become very scarce and very valuable. That's one way that I see this playing out. And then the other is the consequence of these trade wars, where China puts a tariff on strategic metals or stops exporting them altogether. So now what you have sitting in a vault in Germany that you own, maintain, and control is the most precious metal on the planet, because you could name your price. And it's happened before. Ask Japan about a decade ago. China stopped exporting strategic metals to Japan. Now think of all the Japanese companies, the big ones, Toshiba, Toyota, Samsung, I think. When you look at it, now they didn't have the raw materials to make their products. They lasted about 3 weeks. Now think of the future. If this trade war would escalate and China would close off exports, that means the strategic metals that that you have in your possession just became very, very valuable. This is what we call common sense. This is about being in the right place at the right time because we know what the future looks like. And I just presented it to you over the last 3 weeks. So with that said, get to Atlas Forge, check out Strategic Metals. Right now we're offering contracts 50 euros, 100 euros, all the way up to 6-figure numbers. So with that said, Andy and Nicole, have a good night.